Broadcasting from deep within the heartland of free America, where liberty still shines bright. You're listening to On the Move with Mac Worley III.
Hey Mac Pack, it's great to be back with you for another edition of the show that we run here. By the way, if you're new to the program, we broadcast every Sunday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is On the Move with Mac Worley. Of course, I'm Mac Worley. I'm not on the move. Right now, I'm just sitting in a chair talking to you. But anyway, today's our episode 73. And, if you're new to this program, you may not know what we talk about every week. But we talk about all things kind of liberty, guns, government, things along those lines. Today's episode is titled Patriot Act Showdown, College for Convicts, but not for the troops. As I said, this is episode 73 of our program here. And the very first thing I would like to ask you guys to do, I do this every week, if you could go over to Spreaker.com/OnTheMoveShow. Again, that is Spreaker, SPREAKER.com/OnTheMoveShow. If you could go there, sign up, follow us over there, I would greatly appreciate it. You guys doing that kind of stuff helps us out significantly, because for every follower that we get, we'll show up better in the searches on Spreaker, which means more people will find our show, and we'll be spreading the message of liberty to more people. So, again, if you would do that, I would greatly appreciate the time that you guys would take to do that. I know it's time consuming to go and sign up for something, especially if you're not already on Spreaker. If you got to create a username and all that stuff. I know, and I appreciate it. If you just go to the website, though, Spreaker.com/OnTheMoveShow, click the follow button, and sign up, I would really appreciate it. You'd be helping out, you'd be supporting the show, and it means a whole lot to me. So, without further ado, today we're going to be talking about several different topics, and hopefully we'll get a surprise call from one of my good friends. I'm not sure if he's willing to talk about this on the air, but he had a situation where he was open carrying. I literally, seconds before I came on the air today, found out about it. So I want to talk about it. I got the video. I haven't even had an opportunity to see it yet. So I'm going to watch the video with you guys on the air, and we'll talk about it. If he wants to call in, I'd love to hear his perspective. But anyway, other than that, some of the other topics that I'd already prepared for today, we're going to be talking about the NSA bulk spying showdown. This is happening right now, literally. Rand Paul, Mitch McConnell, two Kentucky senators are battling it out ideologically right now on the floor of Congress. And this is all about the Patriot Act, and specifically provisions in the Patriot Act concerning metadata. Now, we've talked about this before. We're going to talk way more about it now. And I also want to talk about some of the precedent, the court cases that came before it that actually ruled metadata as constitutional. We'll talk about that as well. Anyway, I also want to talk about the original purpose of government, or in my opinion, what I believe the purpose of government is. And I should let you guys know this is off the heels of me finishing Frederick Bastiat's The Law. It's an excellent, excellent book. I cannot recommend this book highly enough. Honestly, it's one of the easiest reads I've had in quite a long time, and as you get into it, you start wanting to read the next section of his book. I think it was originally released in pamphlet form. I'm not certain, but there are no chapters. There's just headings and titles, and it takes you basically a paragraph to get through one section. So for me, this book really opened my eyes to a lot of different things, especially considering the purpose of law and what is law. So I want to dive into this because I think it's important, and I think this book really did open my eyes to questions I didn't even know that I didn't even know. How do you know an answer to the question if you don't know what the question is? That's kind of the thinking that I had when I'm reading this book. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. I didn't even know that I didn't know how to explain this, but he explained it perfectly, and it makes sense. And it's just this common sense, honestly. So anyway, I also, something that's kind of near and dear to my heart here, and this is this for me is kind of concerning because we're coming right off of Memorial Day, and I think most of you here that listen to this program are probably pretty patriotic. You support the troops, things along those lines. You want to pay those people back who have served the country, and you obviously want to uphold the promises that we make to the troops. You know, we're going to take care of your medical expenses if you had something happen. If you're an injured warrior, so, somebody who went deployed, got hurt. We made promises to you. Additionally, we make another promise to our troops concerning GI Bills and whatnot. So I want to talk right now about something that I find particularly upsetting. And, this isn't a demerit on convicted felons by any means, because I absolutely believe in redemption. I believe that everyone should have an opportunity to earn back trust and, get back in good graces. I believe in redemption. These are really important things to me. I don't like the idea that we stigmatize our convicted felons, but what I am seeing now is insane. I mean, this is the definition of insanity. I do not understand America anymore. If this happens, I refuse to understand this. I cannot and I will not. Congress right now is working to give Pell Grants to convicted felons while they're simultaneously looking to cut college funds for the troops. So we're going to get into that. I got a lot of stuff that I want to cover, and right now we're actually you know what? One moment here. We're going to go ahead and I think this might actually be a caller here that's just listening. That's what it is. Okay, so, all right. So, anyway, so right now we have a bunch of other things that we're going to get to. I'm sitting on more articles as usual. Sorry about the interruption there. I had a Skype call. I got confused. I get confused easy. So, if you guys would like to join in on today's conversation, I would love to hear you. I'd love to, have you give me your take on everything. The number of the show is 360-450-5625. Again, that's 360-450-5625. Or you can email the show at talk@onthemoveshow.com. Give me, your thoughts. I'd love to have a conversation with you guys. Lots of other ways to get in contact with us too. You can get us on Facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow. You can get us at OnTheMoveShow on Twitter, and let us know. Let your voice be heard. What's on your mind? Anything you'd like to talk about is on the table, by the way, so feel free. Again, one last time, the number of the show is 360-450-5625. Our MacPack phone lines are open, so feel free to light them up. So also, I just want to do a little housekeeping here, give you guys all of our social media one more time here. Our website, OnTheMoveShow.com. Check it out. We got lots of content on there. You can, again, follow us on Spreaker.com/OnTheMoveShow. Follow us on Facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow. Subscribe to us on YouTube.com/OnTheMoveShow. And follow us on Twitter.com/OnTheMoveShow. Anyway, so the very first thing that I want to get to today is this conversation about Pell Grants for convicted felons. This, to me, is the most upsetting. I mean, obviously, we have a huge issue here with the NSA bulk spying, and this is something that I feel like I've been pounding this drum for God knows how long. I mean, it has been a long battle, the NSA bulk spying. But this, to me, is the most egregious. If we're paying for college for convicted felons, and we're looking to cut veterans' college money, and this is not a benefit that they've gotten off of not doing anything. This is they signed up to join the military, and in doing so, there are benefits that come with it, things that they knew they would be able to get because of it. Now, this could have very well been the entire reason why somebody joined the military, was to have a better life. Maybe go to college, get an education, move forward in life. But now we're talking about cutting these college funds. I mean, it's really incredible. It blows me away that this is even being discussed simultaneously as paying for convicts to go to college. Now, I understand the arguments behind it, and I'm not saying that that's not a good thing. I'm not saying that convicts going to college, getting an opportunity to redeem themselves, I don't think that's a bad thing. However, I don't think it's a good thing that we pay for it. I don't think that it's a good idea that comes out of the public till. And I would have said that about anybody. Now, if you say any class of people, it doesn't matter. We're talking about convicts or we're talking about high school kids or anything. I'm actually against the free college of 2 years that Obama was talking about for everybody. Free community college as long as you're willing to work for it. No. Nothing is free. Somebody has to pay for it, first of all. But when we're talking about the troops, it's not the same thing. We're talking about apples and oranges here. These people signed up and they were made promises, and now we're trying to renege on our promises. That is messed up. So I need to read here. We got an article on the Washington Post. This is, let's see, let me find the author, Nick Anderson. And let's see, advocates push to renew Pell Grants for prisoners, citing benefits of higher education. So, according to the article, and by the way, this is an older article, but this is something that's being pushed right now. This is December 3rd, 2013. Nearly 20 years ago, Congress ended a notable federal effort to support higher education behind bars. Inmates of state and federal prisons became ineligible for Pell Grants through a provision of the 1994 Omnibus Crime Bill that President Bill Clinton signed into law. So again, this is a progressive president, Bill Clinton. This is a Democrat. He's the one who did this. The House, then controlled by Democrats, approved the provision on a vote 312 to 116 in April that year. Now, okay, let's run this back here, guys. Run it back, all right? A progressive, Bill Clinton, and Democrats, majority are the ones who decided that this is what should happen, all right? And now they're changing their mind. Now we got progressives trying to say, hey, we should try to, fund these guys because and the arguments, let me explain the arguments here for that side. The argument is that it will help prisoners reintegrate into society, and therefore they would break that cycle of crime that they fall into. Where, and I adamantly, argue this all the time as far as how our prisoners are openly discriminated against. Every other class in America, it is illegal to discriminate them in the workplace. If you're a homosexual, they cannot legally discriminate against your sexuality and say, no, you can't work here. They can't put it on a job application and have that be a deciding factor as to you not getting the job. Oh, he's a homosexual, he can't get the job. Unless maybe it's some kind of non-profit religious organization. I know there have been circumstances in the past where, for example, homosexuals have been denied, being scout leaders in Boy Scouts or something along those lines. I actually don't know the outcomes of that. I don't think that there's anything wrong with, anybody who wants to lead the homosexual, anybody who is homosexual wanting to lead Boy Scouts. I don't think that's an issue as long as they don't have any history of molestation or anything along those lines. I don't. I look at people. I mean, that could happen from a straight person to a gay person. It doesn't matter. I think discriminating along those lines is just morally wrong. To discriminate somebody based upon their sexual orientation, their skin color, their religion, I think is just morally wrong. Now, I'm honestly, when it comes to private organizations, I'm honestly a fan of people being able to discriminate, having the ability to choose who they associate with, and not having the government force those people to associate with people that they don't want to. Now, that is an entirely different thing. But what we're talking about is the current system. What do we have now? Okay? So in terms of what we have now with prisoners, every single job application you ever have filled out has something about a criminal record. They're asking you about your criminal record. And the reason for this is so that they can find out, get this information, and discriminate against you if they choose to. So that is what our prisoners face right now. Open discrimination, everyone does it, and it's allowed, and it's okay, And in my opinion, that should be fine as long as it's not... there's no force behind the government. No one's forcing them to do that. You should be allowed to do that. But we're protecting these classes over here. Every other class is protected, but our prisoners. Our prisoners get shafted, and some would argue, that maybe they should. That they made a mistake, and I believe in redemption, but some people may not. Some people may say, okay, well, you know what, you screwed up, and you should have to bear that cross, and that's your burden to bear. You're the one that made the mistake, and you should have to pay for it. If somebody doesn't want to hire a convicted felon, then they shouldn't have to. And I absolutely agree. But I'm just pointing out the differences here. And now we're talking about funding convicted felons to go to college. So, we already have a society where we're discriminated against these people, but now we're talking about helping them break this cycle. How about this? If you really wanted to break this cycle, how about you make it so that they are a protected class as well. That way we don't have to fund anything. We don't have to continue spending money and opening up the till to people who have violated the law and probably don't deserve it. No offense to these people. I am not judging them, but what I am saying is that no one deserves your money. This is redistribution of wealth. That is what it is. When you take from one person and you give that property that you took from some other person and you give it through force or law, which is the same thing, to another individual. And imagine this, and this is from Bastiat, this is from the law, the book I was talking about earlier. If you did that as a civilian, as just an everyday person, as a regular individual, if you did that, if you took someone's property from someone else and they didn't want you to do it, you took it coercively, you stole it from them or just took it, however you want to define that, and then gave it to someone else, that's a crime. But how is it not crime when the government does the same thing? It is still wrong. It's still immoral. But that is what redistribution of wealth is. That's what socialism is. Ultimately, it will lead to communism where the government is everything. They tell you what to do. They tell you what job you're allowed to have. They tell you what school you're going to. They tell you where you'll live. They tell you what you're going to do with your time. They tell you what you're going to do with your mind. Nothing you produce belongs to you. Nothing you have is truly yours. It belongs to the state, and the state is kind enough to allow you to use it, to allow you to survive. The state's kind enough to provide everything for you in this utopian society of communism. This is what that is. Socialism is a little watered down, a little more diluted. And we are so much more socialist than we would like to admit here in America. Honestly. We are becoming every year more and more socialist. This redistribution of wealth. Now it's prisoners. Tomorrow it'll be another group. And this is what happens when you start taking from some groups of people, using the law to take from some groups of people and to take that stuff and give it to somebody else. This is what happens. What happens is these groups will start to realize, hey, I'm getting my money taken away from me, and it's going to these people over here, and they're using the law as a tool or a method to do that. So maybe I should hire lobbyists, and maybe I should do the same thing. And then other groups start to do the same thing, and they get their money, and they start getting money from other people, and eventually everybody's riding in the cart, and there's very few people pulling the cart. This is what happens, and this is how societies fall. In terms of prisoners getting discriminated against and falling back into cycles where they, you can't get a job because somebody won't hire you because you're a convicted felon, you're having a difficult time, so it already eliminates most of the jobs out there in the market. Most of the good jobs that you would want to have, you can't because you have a conviction on your record. You're a felon. Or even something less. It could be a misdemeanor. Maybe they just don't want you because you have a misdemeanor too. So, that is a cycle that is repetitive, and then these people go back to crime because what else are they going to do? They got to eat, right? You got to eat. So they go back to crime. And that is a common motif, a common stereotype that we hear very, very often. And in a lot of ways, it's true. But the answer, I don't think, is to take money from one group of people, America in general, and then start federally funding these convicts to go to college so that they can get a higher education. And let me ask you, does this even solve the problem of discrimination for convicts? No, it does not. Do you think that when a convicted felon is applying for a job that requires, let's say, for example, a bachelor's degree, let's just say it's a bachelor's degree, and out of all the recipients, you're the employer. You're looking through the resumes of everybody who has, applied for the job, and you have everybody applying has bachelor's degrees, and because you've given the requirements of what you wanted on the job posting or whatever, and then you're looking through it, and you're cross-referencing the applications and whatnot, and you get an application from one of these individuals who's extremely well qualified, just as qualified as anyone else. However, they got a conviction on the record of a felony. Do you think that you're going to overlook that and be like, oh, well, I got all these other people over here who don't have, they're not convicted felons over here in this other pile, but this guy is, even though he's qualified, he's a convicted felon. More than likely, you're probably just going to throw that one out because that's what happens. Employers don't have time for that kind of stuff. Employers will just throw that kind of stuff out. Oh, okay, well, I've already got a big list of candidates over here who qualify and don't have convictions on their record. This guy, sorry, not going to make the cut. Shredder. That's the kind of stuff that's happening. So does giving our inmates, our prisoners, giving them educational opportunities, does that actually fix the root cause of this? Does that fix everything? No. No, it doesn't. What it does do is it takes away money from us, the public, the people who are funding the government tills. It takes away our money and gives it to people who have caused harm to society in one form or another, being that we decided that they had to go be put away, locked away somewhere. Now, granted, I'm not trying to say that everybody in jail necessarily even deserves to be in jail. Now, there may be innocent people in jail, and that would be a failure in our legal system. But in addition to that, there's also, people who are in jail for victimless crimes. So I'm not bashing those people. If you haven't hurt anybody in your serving time, if you haven't deprived somebody of their rights or stolen something or done something along those lines, I don't think that you should be in jail. There has to be a victim in order for you to be being punished. If there's not a crime, if there's no victim, you have to be able to show that. So, in my opinion, it's very frustrating because I feel for this group of people, this class of society. And I want them to be able to redeem themselves, but I don't want them to be able to redeem themselves at the cost of taxpayer money. You made a mistake, all right? You are the one. If you are the convicted convict, you are the one that made the mistake. I didn't make the mistake, so why am I paying for your mistakes? That doesn't make any sense. That makes literally no sense. And then in addition to this, we're talking about, cutting the budget for college benefits for our troops. So we're saying it's okay to spend more money over here for people that, they've messed up. Yeah, maybe they're entitled to redemption, but not at our cost. They're not entitled to your money. They're not entitled to your sweat, your labor, your toil. But if anybody is entitled to that, it's the people that we've promised that to. The troops, the people that fight for our freedom, the people that are fighting right now. It's really upsetting when you start talking about cutting the budget and they go right after the troops. I do not get it. There's so much fat that we can cut. We're told that the cupboards are bare. This is what I think it was Nancy Pelosi that said. There's nothing to cut. The cupboards are bare. We're spending more money now than we have ever spent in history. We've also been taxed more than we've ever been in history. The federal government collected more money than they have ever collected in the history of our government this year. Unbelievable. And our cupboards are bare. There's not enough money for the troops, but now we got money somewhere for prisoners apparently, but not enough for the troops. We're not honoring our obligations. We're not honoring our promises. And we're certainly not acting honorable. I'm really disappointed, honestly. What's even more disappointing to me is I can't find one damn story about this anywhere. I was searching before the show. I wanted to have stories about how this is happening, but I can't find anybody putting these two together, trying to correlate these two stories. We got benefits for Pell Grants for prisoners, and at the same time, we're cutting actual benefits for our veterans. I do not get this. I can't get it. It just is mind-numbingly ridiculous to me. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and cut to a commercial break. When we get back, I want to go ahead and read an article here concerning why GI Bill benefits might be in danger. I'll go ahead and get to this article when we come back from this break. All right, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Oath Keepers is a nonpartisan association of current active duty military, reserve, guard, veterans, peace officers, and firefighters who will fulfill the oath we swore, with the support of like-minded citizens who take an oath to stand with us, to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. So help us God. Join us at oathkeepers.org.
Support On The Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/OnTheMoveShow. We appreciate your support. Hi, I'm Latasha Worley, and I work with candidates to creatively and effectively communicate their message to voters. I offer professional graphic design services, from yard signs to flyers, from logos to vehicle magnets. Email me today at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com for a quote on items for your campaign.
Broadcasting from deep within occupied territory on the far left coast. You're listening to On the Move with Mac Worley III. Stand up, speak out, and get on the move. And now your host, Mac Worley III.
Hey, MacPack, we are back. If you want to join today's conversation, please feel free to give us a call. The number to the show is 360-450-5625. Again, that's 360-450-5625. Or you can email the show at talk@onthemoveshow.com. All right, so when we last left, we were talking about this whole funding for prisoners. And then I also wanted to talk about how they're trying to cut the GI Bill for our veterans. And anyway, this is on VeteransUnited.com in an article written by David Moore. GI Bill benefits are at risk of being cut if military veterans do not show a, quote, return on investment, end quote, to the American people. VA Secretary Eric Shinnecki recently told the annual gathering of student veterans of America. A return on investment basically amounts to veterans earning college degrees, getting jobs, but nobody really knows how many veterans actually graduate and start a career. So basically, this whole article is kind of interesting here because they're saying that they don't really know how many veterans actually go and get their degrees after they get out of the military. Apparently there's no one tracking that, which I find astounding, considering that we're sitting here tracking every single human communication ever on the internet, electronical communications, and storing them in a data mining center in Utah. You know, we're tracking every single thing, but the government doesn't track who uses the GI Bills. They don't track that at all. They're just giving money away, and they don't have any idea who's using that or who's getting money. They don't check that kind of stuff. Interesting. And, you know, this is the VA we're talking about here. The VA is the ones who take care of the GI Bill. So very, very interesting on this. But this is kind of the same thing. You know, you could say the same thing about this whole prisoner reform thing where they're talking about giving Pell Grants to prisoners. And by the way, I understand that Pell Grants don't pay for the entire college. I get that. However, if you're talking about funding, you know, this kind of stuff, that's a lot of money over the long term that we're giving to people who have violated our laws and disrespected, you know, other people's property, other people's rights, things along those lines. We're talking about, giving them a lot of money in the long haul. And we have obviously no studies that we can really look to say, hey, this will solve this vicious cycle that prisoners get into where they get discriminated against and then they have to go back to this life of crime. Yeah, this will do it. There's no real studies to do it. So let's say that we help pay for prisoners to go to college, because a Pell Grant will not cover it all. So you help pay, and they start going to college. They still have to come up with a way to finish paying for it. All right, they still have to come up with the rest of it. And in addition to that, are they likely to start a career afterwards? Are they more likely to start a career than our veterans? I would argue no. And moreover, it doesn't even matter. We made a promise to our veterans saying that we would take care of this. This was part of the deal. You can't sign a contract with somebody and then after the fact, oh, hey, by the way, I know you fulfilled your end of the contract. However, I'm changing what I said I would do, even though you're already out and you've already served your country honorably. You're already out, and the contract, basically, all the stuff on your end is over. Now it's up for me to fulfill my end of the obligation, and then I'm just going to change things. That doesn't even make any sense. That is not honorable. That is absolutely not honorable, and it's not something to do to those who have served honorably. Which, by the way, GI Bill benefits are only awarded to those who serve honorably, or conditions other than honorable, or something like that. They don't give those to those who got dishonorably discharged. Maybe the people who got medically discharged or stuff like that, they get that. But if you have an honorable discharge on your record, that's how you get your GI Bill. If you have a dishonorable discharge, you're not getting it. You will not get your GI Bill. That's just the way it is. And it makes sense. That's part of the contract. It's part of the obligation. That person has to fulfill his obligation, his or her obligation. And if they get dishonorably discharged, they obviously didn't do that aspect of it. So, why would they be awarded? Because they broke their end of the contract. So, what we're talking about is what is fair. And I'm not talking about what is equal. I'm not talking about inequality, things along those lines. I'm just talking about a simple contract agreement that you made as a military member. And the government's now, after the fact, trying to cut the deal, cut you out of the deal. But they find funds for other things. They find the money. The cupboards are bare. But hey, let's give these prisoners Pell Grants. The cupboards are bare, though. Don't ask for any money. We got to cut military spending, and we got to cut the GI Bill, cut VA costs. It's too expensive. These promises, we made promises that we couldn't deliver, but we got money for prisoners. Don't worry about that. Don't ask any questions. Don't look behind the curtain. We got money for prisoners, and it's coming out of your pocket. That's where that money's coming from. So I ask you, do you want this? Is this what you want? I doubt it. I would have a hard time hearing this argument. I can't imagine the argument for giving prisoners college benefit, the college money, over our military veterans who've served honorably and were entitled to this via a contract. But yeah, I'm open to hear it. Feel free to give us a call. The number to the show is 360-450-5625. Again, 360-450-5625. So before we get into our next topic here, I want to talk about an article I found. Let me run this down. I'm trying to figure out where it went. Oh, shoot. I can't find it here. Oh, here it is. All right. An anti-drug senator's office manager arrested for importing meth and date rape and a date rape drug from China. So I thought this was kind of interesting. It's kind of the hypocrisy of what we hear our senators and whatnot talk about. That we got the nanny state telling us that we can't put what we want into our body, but those who are supposed to be the angels presiding over us, they're not even angels themselves. So anyway, here we go. I want to just get to this here. This is the article on the Free Thought Project by John Vibes. This is April 26, 2015. This week, it was reported that the office manager for anti-drug Senator Thad Cochran was caught importing meth from China to allegedly sell and trade for sexual favors. The Senate staffer, Fred W. Pagan, was arrested this week after a raid on his home where police found 181.5 grams of meth. Pagan allegedly admitted to importing the drug. He also admitted to receiving a number of other shipments in the past, including one package that included over a kilo of GHB, the infamous date rape drug. These drugs are arguably among the most dangerous on the market. Pagan has been under government surveillance since April 9th when one of his packages was intercepted by customs agents in Ohio. That package was addressed to him and contained over a kilo of GHB. While being interviewed by investigators, Pagan also attempted to divert the blame from himself by saying that he was receiving the drugs for a distributor that was using his address to avoid detection. So far, no information has been revealed about the distributor, and it has not been confirmed that this person even exists. However, it is likely assumed that Pagan was in business with a number of different people to be able to carry out such a large-scale operation. Pagan's boss, Thad Cochran, has been consistently anti-drug throughout his entire career, shown both in his rhetoric and his voting record. Senator Cochran is disturbed and deeply saddened by the arrest of his longtime aide, Fred Pagan, and is suspending him of all duties pending the outcome of this case. A statement from Cochran's office released on Friday said, according to NBC. So, again, what is law? And this is really what I want to get into here. Before we get into the NSA conversation, what is the purpose of law? I think this is a really interesting question, and it's a question that a lot of us don't even really think about. Law is supposed to be justice. Justice. And law is also supposed to not make everything equal, but it's supposed to prevent injustice from happening. And this is directly from law, the law from Frederick Bastiat. So, in his book, he's basically talking about socialism and some of the things behind that aspect and stuff. And basically, the thought process behind the socialists, the communists, the do-gooders and protectionists, those nanny statists, and just statists in general. Those people think that humanity in general is just a mass of stupid people. Just people who are, in Bastiat's words, inert. You're nothing more than mud to these people, to be molded in whatever shape that they want to mold you in. And because you're too stupid to make up your own mind, and to do what's best for you, they have to come up with a system such as socialism or communism, fascism, where they can mold you in whatever way that they want using the law. Because the law is actually force. So, using force to make people in whatever shape that you want them to be, that's basically this whole concept. But the whole idea is that, the person sitting there coming up with the idea or trying to rule over you is somehow superior to you in some way. But if the mass of humanity is mud, why are these people qualified to tell us that what we should do? If they are humans too, right? So they suffer from the same frailties that we do as well. But yet they feel that they're in a position where they are superior to us and they can shape and mold us. That to me sounds like an elitist. That's somebody that thinks that they're better and smarter than you. So let me ask these people out there, what qualifies them to be better than us? If they actually do have this superiority, if they claim that they're better than us in every way, shape, and form, and we're nothing but just inert masses of people who have no way to do anything on our own without the government there to look over us, to look after us. If these people are so much superior, show us. Show us your proof, because as far as I can tell, you're just another person, just like me. And granted, I have my own opinions and they are entitled to theirs, but I would never advocate using law to force someone to do something against their will. That's the difference between us. Because forcing someone to do something against their will, using the law, is immoral, in my opinion. That's where I stand. You know, the only reason why I'm on the mic is to tell these people, hey, stop doing that crap. That's wrong. That's immoral. You know, open your eyes a little bit. Think about it. And when, we're talking about law being force, you know, I say all the time, every single law that we have on the books is essentially saying that if somebody says no to this, if somebody says, I refuse to comply with this law, I refuse to comply with the enforcement arm, i.e. police officers who are there to impose their will upon me, this law upon me, that when push comes to shove, somebody can be killed for it. So think about every single law that is on the books right now. Do you as an individual, if it was up to you, would you say that if somebody violated, let's say, let's go with driver's license. If somebody didn't have a driver's license, do you think that they deserve to be killed for that? Do you think that they deserve to be killed for not having a license to travel down the road? And by the way, you know, we do have a freedom to travel. We have a freedom of movement. And today, you know, if we were in, for example, if we were in ancient Rome, our freedom of movement would be asserted via horse and carriage. You know, maybe we'd be walking, we'd be using the roads, because that's common saying, all roads lead to Rome, right? So we'd be using the roads. They didn't need a permit to have a horse and carriage. They didn't need to be licensed for that. So nowadays, we're using the same method that what is commonly used, roads, and the method that people use nowadays, which is the car. Instead of the horse, now we got the car. But yet, we've decided as a society that it's okay to kill people over this. I mean, that's what having laws are. When you make a law against something, if they're not hurting other people, depriving others of their rights, I don't think it should be against the law. That's just my personal opinion. The whole reason we have law is to defend individual rights. And this is what I was getting at earlier when I was saying how this book really did help me. The Law by Frederick Bastiat. Amazing book, all right? It answered questions I didn't even know existed. And one of those questions, maybe I never really thought about it, but maybe I should have. You know, I always say that, you know, individual rights always goes above the collective. Always. You know, I don't want to ever see a circumstance where somebody is having their rights being deprived because the majority or a collective have come together against that person or that group of people. Because if it can happen to that one person, it can happen to anybody. This is what happens when the law starts being used as a tool. We were talking about it with the redistribution of wealth. You know, one group gets targeted, and the law is used to carry out that targeting. And what happens? You know, another group comes up and says, well, hey, they used it, so let me try to figure out, and I'll get lobbyists, and we'll do this. So this is what happens when you start using the law as a weapon. You weaponize the law. And let's be clear. The law exists, and governments in general exists for the purpose of protecting individual rights. And this is easy to clarify. It protects their person, their liberty, and their property. All right? Those three things are why governments were created in the first place. And those three things existed before governments. Persons, liberty, property. All of those three things existed prior to governments. And governments were created to protect those things. So why would you want to create a government to protect those things? Well, imagine if you live in a world where everybody is a threat to you. You're always concerned about trying to defend your property from all of your neighbors because they could potentially be threats to you. And there's no one else out there that's trying to protect you from these other people. So it makes it very difficult to make a life for yourself. Imagine, because you can produce things and be a productive member of society, or you can protect the things that you have, but it's difficult to do both of those at the same time. So governments were created to do this for us. Individuals came together because individuals have the right of self-defense. So individuals came together to collectively organize that individual right. So obviously, if an individual can defend their person, their liberty, their property, then it would stand to reason that a community, a collective of people, could do the same thing to protect those individual rights as well. And if we're following that logic, the government can never, ever be used to go against its original purpose. So when you start using the government to deprive individuals of their liberties, of their person, their property, their liberty, when you start doing that, you're using the government against its original purpose, which can't be done and should not be done. Because you corrupt the law, you weaponize the law, you turn the law upside down. And that's what socialism is, that's what communism is, fascism. I mean, any time where the state has more importance, the collective has more importance than the individual, that is what has been done. They've perverted the original purpose of the law. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and cut to a quick commercial break. When we get back, I'm hoping to have Rick Halley on and my good friend Aaron White. I'm hoping that they'll be joining us on the program today because I would like to hear about the open carry situation that happened to them. But regardless, when we get back, I'm going to play the clip. I haven't seen it yet, so I have no idea what happens. And like I said, Aaron is a good friend of mine. I literally found out minutes before this show came on, but before I came on the air here, so I didn't even have a chance to see what happened. All I know is that there was a situation. He was open carrying and was stopped by police, and I don't know what happened. So we'll get to that after this commercial break. And anyway, guys, don't go anywhere. You don't want to miss this.
I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that I take this obligation freely, without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, pledging my life, my fortune, and my sacred honor. So help me God. Join us at oathkeepers.org.
Support On The Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/OnTheMoveShow. We appreciate your support. Hi, I'm Latasha Worley, and I work with candidates to creatively and effectively communicate their message to voters. I offer professional graphic design services, from yard signs to flyers, from logos to vehicle magnets. Email me today at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com for a quote on items for your campaign.
Broadcasting from deep within occupied territory on the far left coast. You're listening to On the Move with Mac Worley III. Stand up, speak out, and get on the move. And now your host, Mac Worley III.
Hello, everyone. We're back. And by the way, if you're just joining the program, my name is Mac Worley III. I'm the host of On the Move. That's this program here. And this is a show we basically talk about all things guns, liberty, politics, government, things along those lines. With that said, there are some conversations that I would like to have here concerning open carry. And I have a video here from a good friend of mine. His name is Aaron. And I want to play the video of his encounter with, it's basically an interaction with Portland police that he had approximately 8:45 p.m. And I'm going to go ahead and read the description he has here. Here is his audio/video recording evidence of the police interaction in Portland yesterday at approximately 8:45 p.m. This encounter rendered the ordinance under 14A.60.010 null and void, which ORS 166.173 seems to somehow authorize cities to have. I have been wanting to see this nullified for quite some time. Here is the ordinance in full, and it's basically discussing the possession of loaded firearms in public, and it talks about. It's pretty extensive. I'm not going to read this on the air, but you guys can go ahead and feel free to look that up. It's 14A. .60.010, possession of loaded firearms in a public place. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and play the video. It's 3 minutes and 38 seconds long, so I have no idea what happened, and I'm looking forward to seeing it. He's going to be calling in a minute here, so we'll have him on the air to talk about what we're seeing now.
Just let you know I'm on video recording.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
The city of Portland is you cannot carry loaded firearms.
Okay, and do you have a reasonable suspicion we've committed a crime?
No, I'm saying, do you have a loaded firearm?
Are we detained?
Do you have a loaded firearm?
Are we detained?
Do you have a loaded firearm?
Officer, unless it's been suspected of committing a crime, Terry, Ohio.
Do you know that the city of Portland has a city ordinance that is a crime that says you cannot carry a loaded firearm?
Unless I'm detained, I don't want to talk to you guys.
Okay. So you want to be arrested?
For what crime?
You want to get out of town with I'm asking if you have a loaded firearm. You've got a loaded gun on your hip, it's against the law.
I don't consent to searches. Yeah, we're just walking down the street.
Okay, very first thing here I just want to mention here is notice that the police, they don't like to answer, am I being detained? Because they know they don't have reasonable suspicion or probable cause to actually detain him. So in doing that, they're just avoiding the question. I think this is one of the most shady things that our police officers are doing recently that I see in almost every single one of these videos, which, by the way, I have a very difficult time watching these after what happened to me. You know, this is very disturbing when, you know, first and foremost, these people are out there to serve and protect, or protect and serve, whatever they say. But they don't have to do that. Again, the Supreme Court has already ruled that the police have no duty to protect you. So this situation, I have no problem with police officers coming up and talking to somebody that has a firearm. They say, hey, what's going on? How you doing? But what we just saw here, all right, is this officer would not tell him what crime that he has committed, all right? He's asking him, am I being detained? And what crime am I being detained for? And he's not saying, well, you have a loaded firearm, and that is against the law. He's saying it's against the law to have a firearm, but he's also not also mentioning the fact that it is okay to. This is from what I remember in Oregon. If you have a concealed carry permit, it's not illegal. So, first of all, he's not saying that he's detained, but he's also not saying that he's free to go, and he's also not talking about all the caveats in the law, things that would allow him to have a firearm loaded in public. He's allowed to have that. So, you know, this is kind of interesting that he refuses to say that he's being detained, but he said, hey, you want to get arrested? Go ahead. And, you know, they don't need anything to arrest you. You know, you may beat the charge, but you don't beat the ride. If they want to arrest you, they will arrest you. And this is not me being anti-police. I absolutely respect oath-keeping peace officers. However, you know, if you're out there as a police officer and you are enforcing laws that are clearly unconstitutional, i.e. a law that says that you're not allowed to have a loaded handgun in a city, absolutely unconstitutional. We have a right to keep and bear arms, uninfringed. Uninfringed. Anyway, I'm going to play the rest of the video. Here we go.
Not have a loaded firearm.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Which one do you want to do?
I haven't committed a crime, have I?
I don't know.
Do you have a reason to believe they are loaded?
I'm asking you.
Okay, so that's the point. He's saying it's illegal to have a loaded firearm, but he has no idea that it's loaded or not because he hasn't conducted a search, and he can't conduct a search or detain him unless he has probable cause or reasonable suspicion. The mere open carrying of a firearm does not suggest that it's loaded. He has no reason to believe that it is loaded. He has no reason to believe that it is in violation of the law just because he has it. So this is a legal limbo that's going on right now, and it's a little frustrating.
Well, no, I don't have to answer because we have court rulings that say we can't. We don't have to answer to you because we haven't committed a crime. The ordinance is unenforceable because in order for that ordinance to be enforced, we have had to commit a crime. And we're not causing any problems.
I'm not asking you if you're causing problems. I'm asking if you're aware of the city ordinance of the city of Portland.
I decline to answer that, sir. I'm sorry.
You're not aware that the city of Portland does not allow loaded firearms.
I decline to answer that. Yep, we are now, but I decline to answer. But that's just going to confuse me, so I don't know. I decline to answer.
So I would suggest if they're loaded, you leave town. Because that's against the law, and it is a crime. Not a violation, it is a crime.
It's a crime.
It is a crime.
Okay.
So if they're loaded, I suggest you leave town. Other cities do not have the same ordinance. We have an ordinance that says no loaded firearms.
Okay, and what's your...
Am I clear?
Let's be clear about one thing. Ordinances do not supersede the Constitution of the United States. They also don't supersede the actual Constitution of the state as well. We have a right to keep and bear arms, and just because some little, city somewhere, this is Portland, it's a bigger city, but, it doesn't matter anywhere. Their little ordinance do not supersede the Constitution, which is, by the way, the supreme law of the land. Anyway, at this point, we have a caller on the line. I'm not sure if this is Aaron or Rick, but I'm going to go ahead and take the call. Hey, caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Mac, it's Aaron. How are you?
Hey, Aaron. Good to hear from you, man. I'm doing pretty good. We're actually in the midst of playing your video. We'll go ahead and play the rest of it here, and I'd like to have your thoughts on it if you have some time with us.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
Okay, great. We're going to go ahead and play the rest of this clip then.
What's your name? Leloff? Leloff. Okay. And what's your name, sir?
Officer Townley.
Townley. Okay. And what's your name, sir? Garrison. Can you spell that? Garrison. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You guys have a good day. Oh.
It's not.
Have a nice day, guys.
Okay, so they're released there, and they're walking across the street. Oddly enough, the police officer says that he's jaywalking as soon as he walked into the crosswalk. So, Aaron, first of all, can you explain what you were doing out that day and all the events leading up to the video?
Basically yesterday, I decided, since my girlfriend was visiting, that I would take her into Portland and, go through some shops and just enjoy the day. We knew that there was going to be a parade being set up for the evening, and, we both decided, since we're going to go into Portland, to open carry, which, I like to open carry. And, we walked past several people, we walked past hundreds of cops, and nobody said a word until then. But we were minding our own business and not causing any problems, and then, three cops decided to say, "Hey, you two." And I turned around and I was like, "Us?" And they said, "Yeah, stop for a second. Are your firearms loaded?" And then that's when I pulled my phone out and started filming. But I did let my girlfriend know that you might want to just have your camera ready to film just in case, because, Portland has a funny thing with their gun laws, and, there's other cities in Oregon with similar ordinances, but they're unenforceable. It's ridiculous, so...
So let me, if you will, humor me here, because I'm not 100% familiar with Portland's ordinances and their laws because I never lived there. So, with that said, can you explain to our listeners, what the law is and what exactly, how you had it configured and things along those lines? Were you in accordance with the law, first of all? Well,
as far as being in accordance, I don't feel inclined to answer that on the phone or on the radio.
That's fine. Don't do it. Yeah. So what is
either
the law?
Way, it doesn't matter. What's that?
What is the law then?
So, okay, the ordinance is under, for Multnomah County in general, it's under Chapter 14A.60.010, and basically, you're basically prohibited from carrying a loaded firearm unless you're like, a police officer or you have a license to carry a concealed handgun, and, there's some other exemptions to that rule. But the problem is that ordinance is actually, it's against our Constitution. It's against the Oregon Constitution. It's against Terry v. Ohio, and it's against our Fourth Amendment. And when we have unenforceable laws in place, they really need to be dealt with and just, taken care of and just done away with. I've seen in the video, so.
Absolutely. And in terms of it trying to supersede the Constitution of both the Oregon and the federal Constitution. I think this is particularly disturbing because some city just decides that they want to start infringing on their citizens' rights, and he was literally trying to run you out of town. He said you need to leave town. What do you think about that?
I thought about it later, and if I had this thought in the moment, I would ask him, what authority do you have to tell anyone to leave Portland? In general, I mean, what if I live there? I mean, he doesn't know. The more I'm seeing what's going on, the more I see, the government and the cops, they want to, make up laws as they go, or, like as you've seen in the video, he was just probably bored and wanted to come over and, try to throw his weight around or something, but I wasn't going to back off, and, I know the law, I know my rights, and a lot of people don't, and it's actually pretty sad, so.
Yeah, and the scary thing is that even if you weren't in violation of any laws whatsoever, he could have, if he just was having a bad day or didn't like you, he could have arrested you for any reason whatsoever under the sun, thrown on a disorderly conduct, maybe a trespassing charge somewhere in there, and could have arrested you for any reason. Do you think about, because personally, I know you personally open carry quite often, and I honestly I think hands down that is one of the best things that you can do is to open carry. One of the things I wanted to ask you, being an open carry advocate yourself, what do you think about people who say that those of us who open carry firearms are responsible for the demise of firearms rights in our country?
Well, my answer to that would be either we have it or we don't. If we're going to do something that would ultimately lead to its demise, we never had it in the first place. So
absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's kind of like the whole concept. Like, you have a freedom of religion unless you pray, and if you pray, then you don't have that freedom anymore. We'll all vote to remove it. That you really didn't have the freedom of religion in the first place because they can just take it away at any given point. And again, one thing that's super important for everybody to understand is that these rights are not bestowed upon us by a government that is just so nice and oh yeah, you can have that right to bear arms as an afterthought. Those rights are either inherent if you believe in natural rights, or some people believe that it's endowed upon us by our Creator. So, either way, these are natural rights. These existed before governments. So how can governments give us these rights if they already existed before the government itself existed in the first place? I just think it's astounding to think that you can blame people for asserting a right that they have for that right being, chipped away at or starting to be eroded at. I think that the biggest issue, and I'm correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you would probably agree with this as well, is the Sunshine Patriots out there who say, I support the Second Amendment, but ... whatever their reason is.
I've heard that line over and over, and honestly, I just call it out as it is. That right there is it's self-refuting. You can't, say but and then have that pre-existing line. Words don't work that way.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's really frustrating because you're saying that you support the Second Amendment, which is the amendment of the Constitution that says the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So you're saying that you don't support any infringements upon the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms. So, but then you say, but I don't think that there should, people should have, AR-15s or rifles or something along those lines, or I don't think that people should be allowed to open carry in public. Well, then you really don't support the Second Amendment because it said that it shall not be infringed. So you're saying that you support it not being infringed, but you have your own little caveats of infringements that you feel that it should be infringed upon. And I think it is doublespeak. It's hypocrisy, in my opinion.
Well, the but is a negating factor of what you believe in, so you don't believe in it in the first place. But I was just going to say, as far as the Constitution goes, the more I look into really what's going on, the more I see it's really the citizenry, the quote-unquote peasants versus, elites that are backed by armed bodyguards, and then they, are exempt from the laws that we have to follow. So, that's where the real problems really stem from.
Yeah, I'm sure if I was surrounded by armed bodyguards 24/7, I wouldn't worry about my personal safety either. I wouldn't feel the need for me to carry a firearm either, ever. But But, it's one of those things where the elites say, do as I say, not as I do. Bloomberg, he can afford to have his own freaking private army surrounding him at all times, but yet he thinks it's okay to come after your gun rights. Where, you're just walking down the street in this video. You're not harassing anybody. You're not bothering anybody. You're just minding your own business, and you're being harassed.
Even a cop. Oh, sorry about that. So, yeah, even a cop, I asked him, I said, I'm not causing any problems. And he's like, well, we're not saying that. And then, if I'm not causing a problem, I'm not committing a crime. And then he just, decides to come up and probe us to say something to incriminate ourselves. Then, I don't know what he was thinking. I really don't. So, I don't know.
Absolutely. I agree with you in terms of it being basically just throwing some weight around and them trying to enforce, number one, an unenforceable ordinance, as you said. How do you know if a gun is loaded without first searching that individual? And if you're just going to search everybody because they have a gun on their hip, that's a right that people have. So you're basically saying that if you assert your Second Amendment right, you forfeit your Fourth Amendment right against unlawful search and seizure from police. So basically, it'd be like the same thing if just freedom of religion again. Imagine a world where it's okay to have a religion. You have the total freedom of religion, except if you practice this one religion in particular, you don't have a Fourth Amendment right. We can come in and search your house and search your belongings because it's suspicious. That's basically what they're saying.
Well, they can, detain you for anything. The National Defense Authorization Act. They can, even if you look like a terrorist or a criminal, they can basically just do whatever they want. And if the more people that are informed about that, it changes things. When we're armed with knowledge, we can stand up for ourselves. But that's all I can really do. And it's funny because, the anti-gun people say, oh, I'm afraid of firearms. Oh, man, they're responsible for all these deaths and stuff. But when they're in trouble, and by the way, the Supreme Court already said the cops don't have a duty to protect you. I'm not saying, cops won't or anything, but, in general, when they're in trouble, who do they call? They call the police. If there's an armed person right there or not, they're going to be like, oh, wait, where's the good guy with the gun? He wasn't here to save me. By that time it's too late, but, whatever. I don't care about that too much.
Yeah. Well, it's that old saying where, I would carry a police officer with me everywhere I go, but it's easier and lighter to carry a Glock or whatever your weapon of choice is in particular. And it's true. When I was arrested for open carrying, and I was arrested for trespassing on a public sidewalk, the silliest part about this thing is that I was out there walking around for well over 30 minutes, and that was before I had my first interaction with police. So, that right there, I was in a city. It's not like I'm out in the middle of nowhere, in the country somewhere. I was in a city. So, if it takes police 30 minutes to respond to somebody that they think is a threat, because obviously they thought I was a threat somehow, they rolled up 7 guns pointed at me. So if it takes them that long to respond to a threat, it's a joke to think that you can rely on police solely to protect you. They, first of all, as you and I have both said, they have no legal obligation to protect you. None whatsoever, as deemed by the United States Supreme Court. In addition to that, they have slow response times. If you are lucky to have a quick response time, it's because there was an officer around you, around your area or something along those lines. But still, you're likely to have to wait 30 minutes or more before police arrive. And do you really think that that's safety? That's the illusion of safety.
And not only that, but let's say they do show up and arrive, they get to stand there and not do anything. They don't have to do anything. So.
Yeah, exactly. There was and the whole reason why the case with the police not having a duty to protect you came to fruition. There was a case where a woman called 911. She and maybe I think it was another woman was with her, called 911 because there were home invaders that had just barged into their place and were raping these women over and over again. They called the police. The police did a drive-by of the place, and they actually looked out the window and saw the police, but they drove away. And they called again and again and again, and no one came.
Oh.
No one came.
I didn't I haven't seen that one. You should send that to me if you have time.
Well, that's this case law as far as why the United States Constitution, or I'm sorry, the United States Supreme Court decided that they have no obligation to protect you, because they tried to sue the police department afterwards for not responding and not helping, and they lost because the Supreme Court said, well, you know what, they don't have a legal obligation to protect you, so you can't sue them for ignoring your calls of your pleas for help. You know, they can't be sued for that. So that's what established this precedent. And it's really quite scary when you think about it, because we put so much faith as a society in our police officers. I think it's one of the biggest lies perpetuated by the government, saying that the police can protect you just like the government can feed you, the government can give you a job, the government can do all these things. You know, the government can't do that. What that is doing is, it's first of all, it's redistribution of wealth, and it's also a lie.
I agree with you. I mean, you know, they're ran by people that really, I mean, but I don't know if all of them don't care about, you know, their job or the people, but I would say that there are quite a few of them that just are in it for themselves.
Yeah, I mean, a lot about the government is all about power and about influence, rubbing shoulders with the right people, things like that. And these are concerns that I had. You know, I'm going to be talking about Rand Paul in an upcoming segment here. These are concerns I had, you know, towards Rand Paul with his endorsement of Mitch McConnell and all of that good stuff. But hey, Aaron, we got another caller here. I'm going to go ahead and add him to the call, so don't drop off or anything. You'll all be on the line at the same time. Hey, new caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Rick.
Hey, Rick. All right, cool. So Rick and Aaron are both on the lines here. First of all, Rick, I know you just actually let me backtrack here to tell the audience. This is Rick Howley. He's running the Gun Rights Coalition over there in Washington, and he is the one that actually initially messaged me and let me know about Aaron's situation. So Rick, what do you think about Aaron's video?
You know, I'm really impressed with the way that Aaron dealt with that. He was calm, cool. He wasn't rude. He just simply exercised his right not to answer the questions. And that was the right way to deal with it. And in the end, he walked away.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I agree. I think you did a really good job with that, Aaron. And I hope that you keep carrying. I hope this doesn't dissuade you from doing it anymore. Are you planning on doing it in the future?
Oh, I mean, I do it all the time, and, you know, I've never had any problems. I mean, I've had a couple of scares and stuff like that, but, I mean, people don't even notice or care. But, you know, if I'm, you know, going to walk in Portland like that, you know, I'm definitely going to have a camera ready in case. So.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, Rick, I wanted to give you an opportunity here, because I know you have you had an event yesterday. There was a SB 941 I Will Not Comply demonstration that you guys held in Salem. I know this is supposed to be a huge event. How was the turnout?
In reality, I think it was about what I expected. I expected 400 or 500 people. Of course, more than that signed up and said they were going that didn't. However, there's a lot of things to consider there. You know, I've seen people trying to compare it to the rallies right after Newtown and the rally in Olympia last year after the elections. Those are not fair comparisons. The Newtown, you know, everyone was passionate and riled up because they could see that their rights were being trampled on. So they were ready to go out there and fight. Last year in Olympia, we had a year of fighting before that. With this deal in Oregon, though, they slipped it through in about 6 weeks. Mm-hmm. So this is something that I'll bet that 5%, maybe 5% of the people in Oregon know about it. So for the turnout that was there yesterday, I really was not disappointed myself. Now as long as that same 5 people goes out and does something further, talks to their representatives, gets out to more of the rallies, open carries, talks to their neighbors, talks to their friends and coworkers and whatnot. That's what we want them to do. And that's what these rallies are about, is getting those people to go out and do more than just chat with their friends on Facebook.
Absolutely, yeah, and that, I mean, that's the purpose of this show. You know, get out there, get active, get on the move, go do something. You know, to whatever your cause is. You know, in this case, it's gun rights. You know, for me, I'm really disappointed in what I've seen on the West Coast. You know, I mean, I love the people I've met out there. There's a whole bunch of amazing patriots out there like you and you, Rick, and you, Aaron, that are out there working towards liberty. But you know, it just amazes me that within one basically fall swoop there, you know, Oregon and Washington have basically gone dark. You know, it's the lights of liberty have gone out there. We have draconian gun laws such as SB 941, and before that we had I-594 in Washington, and they're basically the same laws. It's really upsetting to me that a majority of people or legislators can go ahead and just, you know, go around the Constitution. Who cares? And they do it under the guise of saying, oh, this is for public safety, universal background checks. Tell us about what it really is about, Rick.
Yeah, you know, it's not about safety. It's actually a twofold deal. It's, you know, this group of people that feels that, you know, firearms are inherently dangerous. You know, that's the one group, and that group feels that, you know, they want to do anything that they can to hinder our ability to have those firearms in an attempt to completely eliminate them from society, which of course is, you know, we all know that that's an absurd notion. It's not going to happen. So that's the one group. The second group of people are those that they want to control. They want to control us. They want to know where the firearms are. They want to be able to, you know, suck in this. You know, well, for instance, in Oregon, one of the issues with the SB 941 is that this actually is a revenue stream for them. They're going to be bringing in money with it. With the background checks and whatnot, it's actually going to bring in an income.
I see. Okay, so it's now, is this enough to basically pay for it? Because this is adding a layer of bureaucracy for, you know, to everything. So basically, all these background checks and extra steps that people have to go through, they have to, you know, spend a little bit more money on all these steps along the way. So let me ask you: do we know if the added work on the bureaucracy that is there is this paying for that extra layer, or is it in excess of it?
It's at I don't have the actual numbers, but I reviewed like an expense report type deal that they were, you know, where they were discussing the expenses of it and how much it would cost and whatnot, and it actually showed a substantial excess coming into the state.
Yes, sir. So it is a revenue machine. You know, it's another way for the government to make money off of hardworking Americans. And you know, for me, this is disturbing because, and I think this has to be the most heinous part about SB 941 and I-594 is that they put undue burden on individuals who are trying to learn about guns and gun safety, things along those lines. So in turn, it actually will discourage people, new shooters, from getting into guns in the first place. So, and I think that's part of it. I mean, if you can stop people from you know, becoming passionate about asserting their Second Amendment rights, if you can stop people from learning about firearms, and you can just stop it right there, you know, yeah, they'll never be able to convince me, you, Aaron, to change our minds how we feel about firearms. But if they can stop people from actually picking up a gun in the first place and learning about these rights in the first place, then their mission is done. They will just have to wait until we all die, and there we go. There's no more Second Amendment rights. There's no more Second Amendment supporters. No more people in the NRA. None of that stuff, because they've effectively stopped people from learning about firearms in the first place. Aaron, what do you think about that?
Well, I think they've been trying to do this for a long time. I mean, I've been kind of studying, you know, how the, you know, states have been going from like either no issue to, you know, may issue to shall issue. And I mean, there's progress in those areas, but I can definitely see a lot of pushbacks from like people like Michael Bloomberg and George Soros. They're really, really not happy with us having the ability to defend ourselves, and I can definitely see just by the way Bloomberg has been going through state to state, Washington, Oregon, Vermont. That's a gun-loving state. They have constitutional carry. They just don't know when to stop, and it's they're not solving any problems. They're not their money isn't going to causes of how it's like real crime reduction or teaching people how to really protect themselves, men and women. I don't know. I just see, a government that has, a lot of money behind it that kind of is doing what it wants to do. And if none people are standing up, we could definitely, lose the battle someday. So it's our responsibility to, be informed and inform other people. So.
Absolutely, yeah. We all have to get out there and first of all, just have conversations with people. I have a lot of respect for you, Aaron, and you as well, Rick. I know that you both are open carriers in your daily life. You daily carry all the time, everywhere you go. You have a pistol on your hip, and I have to say, my hat's off to you guys. I really respect the fact that you guys are putting yourself out there and you're engaging with your community. And by the way, Aaron, would you share some of the stories? And after that, Rick, I'd love to hear maybe one of your stories as far as interactions you've had with members of the public out there who were interested in why you were open carrying in the first place. Let's start with you, Aaron.
Well, okay, so yesterday we were my girlfriend and I were walking down the sidewalk, and there was a guy behind us that I noticed she and I had firearms on our hips, and he looked right at me and he said, "Dude, that's awesome. Thanks for doing that. I have a license to carry and everything else like that." I've had different interactions where people have thanked me or asked me what kind of gun it is. I've only had one interaction where somebody thought, it was illegal to open carry or what I was doing, and, they'll call the cops and have me arrested. I said, okay, we'll have them come out, maybe, we can all learn something.
Yeah.
But
that's kind of the point, right, is to have these interactions, and now that person knows that it's not illegal, right?
Exactly. I can quote, RCW numbers and kind of go through the list of sort of what they are. But I was going to say, too, I haven't mentioned, this on the show yet, or, I don't know if you saw it on my Facebook wall or whatever, but I had an experience, I think it was last weekend. I went to a worksource in Vancouver, kind of down by the golf course. Do you know where that is, before you moved and everything?
I know where the work source is in Vancouver. I've driven by that a lot of times. So, okay. So what happened when you went in there?
Okay, so I pulled up. I just parked the car and I looked at the. I looked at the window. It said, no firearms basically allowed inside. And it basically posted another law that says, intimidating a public servant is a Class B felony, which is a whole different issue. Mm-hmm. So I called them and I said, so I noticed that there's a sign out here. What authority does WorkSource have if it's a state-funded building, basically to put up their own rules that is in violation of state preemption? And, nobody could really tell me. So I actually walked in there anyway with my gun on my hip, and I walked all the way in. I asked a couple of other people, I noticed that there's signs, why do you have signs up there if they're in violation of state preemption? Again, nobody knew, so then they gave me the contact with the administrator. So I went down there to have my resume and cover letter looked at so I can apply to some more jobs and know that, my cover letter's better. So anyway, I was sitting in a cubicle for probably 20 minutes, so I was probably there for about, 35, 40 minutes. And I'm just sitting there, and then I noticed a police officer walks right in front of the cubicle and stops there. And I looked at him and was like, oh, hello. And I said, what's your name? He goes, well, you don't even know why I'm here yet. I said, was it because somebody called me because of my firearm? He said, yeah, it is. And anyway, I was just kind of sitting there. We were just talking. He said, I'm all for, for open carry, for you doing that. And then I think his partner came in a couple of minutes later, and there was some, I don't think it was the administrator. It was some other employee there. They all three approached me. And the employee asked me why I need to carry if it, it makes people nervous. I said, well, people's feelings don't supersede our rights. Well, anyway, he said, we don't want you here, so, you're going to have to leave. So then I said, well, wait a second, how can you tell me to leave this is a state building, and we have a state preemption that, doesn't authorize state buildings to implement rules greater than state law. And, of course, he didn't know the answer. And then, they said just to leave. So I did. Later on, I sent the administrator an email asking him, and I quoted the laws. And he wrote back, and he said, "You are welcome to bear arms when you go there." So,
holy cow! So,
it was a really weird situation.
So, are they planning on taking the signs off the door there?
Well, when I go back down there, I haven't decided when I'm going to go back down there. I'm going to print the email up, and I'm going to go in there. I'm going to say, "Hey, so I got an email from the administrator saying, hey, I can bear arms in here, and basically, using that email, I can say you basically have to take the signs down. You can't have a sign that's unenforceable." So.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's frustrating too because correct me if I'm wrong. Since it's publicly funded, that makes it public property. Am I correct?
Well, I asked them if this was treated as private property, and they said it's a state building. So if it's state building, it's not technically private property. I mean, I don't know the whole technicalities between private property versus, the rules that, certain state-funded buildings can set and such, but they never gave me any kind of leadway into the authority that they thought they had. So, anybody that doesn't know the laws, would not walk in there with a gun or take it off. But, somebody that does know the laws, will say, that sign is basically unenforceable. And by the way, any sign in Washington that says no guns allowed, they're unenforceable. I mean, unless it's like a federal building like a school or, post office. But if you walk in there, they have to tell you to leave. I mean, that's the way the law is.
Yeah, as long as it's not a federal building, federal buildings, they fall underneath a different jurisdiction. However, I still think, I don't understand how, a federal building can be, because it's funded by the public, it's paid for by your tax money, and and with that means it's part of your property. It belongs to you as well. I can understand if there were perhaps security threats, you can't open carry in a White House. Okay, I could understand that, but in terms of like the post office, which by the way, an interesting fact, there's actually only one post office in the United States, and it's a museum. All these other post offices are just like little service stations and stuff. They're not actual post offices. Unrelated fact, though. But anyway, as far as that, though, I mean, basically, my understanding of the term the definition of public property is that it's paid for via public funds. So, if you and I both pay money to fund an operation, we should be able to do with this area whatever we want, just like a public sidewalk. My tax money is being used to pay for this. So it belongs to me just as much as it belongs to anyone, and I should be able to assert my rights. The government should not be able to say that you can't carry a firearm, just like they couldn't say you can't pray in this building. It's your building. You own it just as much as they do. So, I don't understand. And I definitely agree with you. I mean, that's definitely a fight worth having. They're putting these arbitrary restrictions on your right to bear arms in a building that is public. I mean, it's public property. It's paid for via the public. So can you imagine saying that you can't pray in this building? I mean, that would be outrageous. But it's suddenly okay because gun owners can be demonized. Rick, what do you? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Aaron.
I was just going to say, I'm not surprised. They're putting up signs or basically making up rules they can't enforce. I mean, if when the citizenry doesn't know the laws or their rights, I mean, they're just going to get away with it until they're, confronted upon.
Exactly, and that's why it's important that we go out there and challenge these things. That, man, my hat is way off to you, Aaron. Good job, man. That's a good one. So, Rick, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, on that one there, I've been communicating with Aaron on that one there for a few days now on it, back and forth, and when he goes back down there, I very well may go down there with him. Check out and see what jobs there are available.
Yeah, well, let me know how that goes.
So yeah, I've talked to a few people about it. Last night I talked to Representative Wilson about it, and everyone I've talked to has basically said the same thing. State preemption applies. And that actually it kind of ties in with my experience last year as well at the election office, which I know you're already aware of that one.
Yeah, please tell us about it though. I don't think my listeners have heard about it.
Certainly. Last year, I actually am a certified election observer here to go in and watch the ballot processing. I'm not standing there watching anyone vote or anything. I'm just watching the processing of the votes when people are, when the group of people are going through the votes to make sure that they're not taking their pen out and marking things or choosing one side or another when they shouldn't be. At any rate, we've got of course we've got our exceptions, what you were talking about a little bit before, the courthouses and federal buildings and schools and whatnot. Mm-hmm. But that does not include most public buildings, and the election office is not included. So when I went down there to observe the elections, actually even when I went to get certified, I was open carrying when I went to get certified. So I go down to observe the elections. 2 days later, I get a call from the local paper. Apparently, the other observer that was there, of course, across the party, had called the paper and I told them about it. And the answer that was given by the election office was that they were going to get with the city attorney and discuss the options with this city attorney to see if they could forbid open carry there or what they could do there. Mm-hmm. About 3 weeks later, I get another phone call again. Well, it turns out that they had gotten with the city attorney, and I already knew all this stuff because I told them when I first talked to them. The city attorney had gotten back with them and said, state preemption applies. We can't prevent people from open carrying there.
And Rick, just to clarify that point, and so everyone out there in listener land knows what you're talking about, can you describe what state preemption is and what that means?
The state preemption is where the state says we preempt all firearm laws throughout the state. Your local cities, counties, and communities cannot enact any laws regarding firearms that are stricter than what the state has. They could potentially enact laws that are that reduce those restrictions, but they can't further restrict their rights beyond what the state does.
Understood. So okay, carry on your story. Sorry about that. Just wanted to clarify that point.
So, and that one actually in Washington here is established in case law because Seattle decided to try and prevent people from carrying in the except there. And that was challenged in court, went to the Supreme Court, the state Supreme Court, and the state Supreme Court came back and said, no, state preemption applies. You cannot keep people from carrying in parks. So that pretty much established our preemption statewide so that, such as the workforce. He can go in there and open carry, no matter what that sign says, mm-hmm. and they can't tell him to leave because he's a law-abiding citizen carrying in a lawful manner.
Yes, sir. Yeah,
no.
I absolutely agree. I'm astounded at how many places will do that kind of thing where they restrict your right to keep and bear arms in their public facilities that have no business doing that because they do fall under state preemption. This is not just an isolated incident. This is all over the state, and honestly, this is happening all over the country.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of actually it's kind of interesting because with Aaron, of course, in Portland, that's a whole other issue altogether. But he had the issue at workforce. I had the issue at the election office. Both of them were state facilities. Now, Aaron can probably attest to this as well. Going to private businesses, we do not get bothered when we open carry. These businesses, even these ones that supposedly have these policies against carry, do not bother us.
Well, that's good. Yeah. So, Rick, I want to actually, for the sake of letting everybody know how it's beneficial, basically, for open carry purposes. Well, give me one story that you've had where you've had an education moment with somebody out there, in the public who maybe didn't understand about it, and you've explained to them, and what was one of these beneficial stories? Because I know you have to have a ton of these.
Oh, there's so many of them. There's actually a couple of them in particular. There was one where I went down to the corner store down here. I actually went down there to pick up a 6-pack of beer. Went in there to get my beer. Got up to the counter, and this guy's standing up there, and he's got his two young kids up there, 5, 6, 7 years old, something like that. And he noticed that I was open carrying, and his comment was, "See that? If you kids are good, then you'll be able to do that, unlike Daddy."
That's pretty funny.
So obviously he had done something that he wasn't able to legally carry. However, the most way to get the most is people that come up to me and ask me about open carry as to whether or not it's legal, because they just do not know what the laws are. And that's where, if we go out there and open carry on a regular basis, and we get a chance to talk to a few of these people that don't know what the laws are, the more people that know what the laws are, the more people that will understand that is their right.
Exactly.
So,
yeah, I absolutely agree. For me, what I see is people who, number one, they don't know it's their right, and also they've never seen it done before. So, they have no example to have known what it's like. In their mind, they're thinking it's going to be the Wild West. There's going to be shootouts on every corner if people are doing these kind of things. And what they don't realize is that these are their neighbors that are out there open carrying, and they have to actually see these people. You want to see the average Joe, out there walking around open carrying, and then people will stop demonizing it so much and stop demonizing gun owners so much as well.
Correct. Yeah. If they see people out there acting responsibly, going about their daily lives, open carrying, then they're going to stop seeing firearms as this evil thing that everyone, or that the media and the Bloomberg groups and whatnot are trying to make it out to be.
Absolutely. Well, guys, I want to thank you guys for joining us on the show, and more importantly, I want to thank you guys for being examples for other open carriers out there. What you guys are doing is actually pushing the needle forward, and I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much, and thanks for joining us. And by the way, Rick, if you guys got anything else going on, feel free to give us a holler. By the way, go ahead and blast out like your social media information, website, all that good stuff for people for Gun Rights Coalition.
Certainly. If someone wants to find the Gun Rights Coalition, just jump on Facebook and search for Gun Rights Coalition. It'll show up. We have a fairly large group there, up over 2,000 people now, of people that. And our discussion is we discuss gun rights. That's all we discuss, and we try and do it in a reasonable manner. And I think it's been a fairly successful group. So,
yeah. Well, I really do appreciate the work that you guys are doing over there. And again, thank you so much for joining us on the show here, guys. Will you guys come back sometime and we can talk again about this kind of stuff? I had a lot of fun.
Certainly. And one more thing that I wanted to mention is, if anyone out there is kind of considering open carrying or along those lines, by all means. It can't be just me and Aaron. It's got to be all of us. We have got to jump in and do our part.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's going to take all of us. It can't just be, a couple people out there. If even if it's a small percentage of people out there, but that are active out there, open carrying in their daily lives, and explaining to people. I agree. That's what's going to help, get this message out there and help normalize it. Because that, in my opinion, is the point: is to normalize it and make it so people aren't so damn afraid of this inanimate object that's not doing anything to anyone. It's, they wouldn't be afraid of somebody just walking down the street with like, a rock in their hand, or a rock just laying on the street. But if it's a gun, oh my God, that they call the police and people are running, and afraid. It doesn't make any sense when what we're talking about is conduct, when we're talking about actions of individuals. And if somebody isn't threatening somebody, there's nothing to be threatened about. But I absolutely agree with you guys, and keep doing what you're doing, guys. You guys are, the tip of the spear. You guys are what we need right now. So thanks for getting on the move, guys.
Well, thanks for having me on.
All right, guys. Well, we're going to cut to a quick commercial break. And thanks again to Rick Halley and Aaron White for joining us. We're going to hope to get them back on the program here someday soon. But anyway, we're going to cut to a commercial break. When we come back, we have the last 20 minutes here. We're going to talk about Rand Paul and Mitch McConnell's effort here to basically, fight each other on the Patriot Act provisions regarding metadata. So you don't want to miss this information. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Oath Keepers is a nonpartisan association of current active duty military, reserve, guard, veterans, peace officers, and firefighters who will fulfill the oath we swore, with the support of like-minded citizens who take an oath to stand with us, to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. So help us God. Join us at oathkeepers.org.
Support On The Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/OnTheMoveShow. We appreciate your support. Hi, I'm Latasha Worley, and I work with candidates to creatively and effectively communicate their message to voters. I offer professional graphic design services, from yard signs to flyers, from logos to vehicle magnets. Email me today at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com for a quote on items for your campaign.
Broadcasting from deep within occupied territory on the far left coast. You're listening to On the Move with Mac Worley III. Stand up, speak out, and get on the move. And now your host, Mac Worley III.
And we are back. Thanks for sticking with us. If you want to join today's conversation, feel free. The number to the show is 360-450-5625. Again, that is 360-450-5625. Or you can email us at talk@onthemoveshow.com. We'll read your emails live on the air. You can also message us on facebook.com/onthemoveshow. Or you can get us on Twitter @onthemoveshow as well. So send your tweets, all your information, whatever's on your mind. Let us know. Let your voice be heard. Anyway, so we're going to move on to the next topic here that I want to get to. And this one is particularly upsetting enough for me. So I'm going to go ahead and just enter into the next segment of the show. We like to call it the Mac Attack. Here we go.
It's time for the Mac Attack!
This is a segment where I talk about outrageous events in the news. And, if you, like I said, if you guys want to join in on the conversation, feel free. Again, that number is 360-450-5625. So the outrageous events in the news that I want to talk about today is this whole controversy over should we let the provisions in the Patriot Act, should we let it expire? It expires at midnight tonight, by the way, just a few short hours, and it very well may have been settled while we've been on this show here. So as far as the information that I have and that I know, they're basically debating about whether or not they should should pass another section of this to allow these two provisions that are basically being disputed over between Rand Paul's group and between Mitch McConnell. Which, by the way, this whole dichotomy between these two, all right, they're at each other's throats over this Patriot Act thing. And Mitch McConnell was basically saying that Rand Paul is lying. He's spreading propaganda about what this stuff does, about how these programs run and operate, and he's basically fear-mongering is what he's saying about Rand Paul. Mitch McConnell is saying this about Rand Paul. Two Kentucky senators, by the way, who've both endorsed each other. Number one, Mitch McConnell was endorsed by Rand Paul when he got reelected. And by the way, FYI, Rand Paul is also responsible for that because he helped. His endorsement gave McConnell some credibility. So, granted, he's been in the Senate for a long time, but gave it credibility on the Libertarian side, conservative side, because conservatives do not like Mitch McConnell. They do not. He's a GOP establishment guy. That's what he is. He's a deal maker. He's a dirty politician. You know, I wouldn't trust him as far as I can throw him, and he doesn't look like I can throw him very far. So, regardless, this guy is a scoundrel in my opinion. And you know, I was concerned because Rand Paul is cozying up to this guy, and I'm like, whoa, wait a second, this is the kind of guy that I don't want, a candidate that I support to be cozied up to. So when I start seeing this, this cozying up with the establishment GOP, it put me off majorly from Rand Paul. In addition, now, the funniest thing is that Mitch McConnell has endorsed Rand Paul for president, which is comical because they're at each other's throats on this issue. But what is the issue? The issue is the metadata. The metadata, and what is metadata? Let's actually start there. Metadata is the durations of your calls, who you called. If there was a GPS location or something, they maybe know where you're calling from or what tower you went through. That is metadata, basically. All this data, that it doesn't tell you the content of the call, but it tells you a lot of information about the call. And you can develop a bunch of patterns based off of the information. If they know where you're calling from, for example, I don't know if they have access to that in every portion of it, but if they did, now they know where you're calling from. They can place you on a map at certain times of the day. Every time you use that phone, they know where you were. Boom, boom, boom. But even still, let's just say who you called. Let's say you start calling somebody. You have a good friend. You start calling somebody, and the way that they do the Patriot Act, by the way, is 5 hops from what I'm remembering, and we researched this a while back ago on the show. 5 hops of friendships. So let's say I call you. All right, and you call someone else, and that someone else calls someone else, and it does that to the 5th person. They're allowed to spy on using the Patriot Act and gather information on all 5 of these people, within that, and it goes out everyone that they make contact with. So imagine how big that network gets. That starts to crisscross and go so far out there. If every 5 hops of friends and we're even talking about Facebook. Let me just point out the fact that on Facebook I have 1,812 friends. So let's say I was under investigation underneath the Patriot Act jurisdiction. They can go to all 1,812 of those people and go 5 different levels out. We're talking hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people that could fall under subject to this kind of illegal wiretapping and invasion of privacy and all these other things that the Patriot Act allows. But what we're talking about with the metadata, all right, is that the government will get this information from Verizon or AT&T or any of the other big companies out there, and they will collect all of this information from these companies, and these companies don't have a choice. They have to provide it. And in addition to that, there's provisions in the Patriot Act that make it illegal for these companies to tell anyone that they had to provide the information. So, for example, if the government comes in and takes millions of records away from Verizon, Verizon can't then go to the media and say, hey, the government just took millions of information from us. It's a felony if they go around telling people that information, according to the Patriot Act. So, pretty astounding, but the craziest thing is this whole idea of metadata. The fact that you can just provide what is essentially, and we talked about this in the last show, essentially it is a general warrant. You're saying that we'll search this one company, and because of that we can get records on every single American that uses this company. We can search all of their information. When in reality, you need to get a warrant for each one of those people. And there has to be a reason to get a warrant. There has to be probable cause, reasonable suspicion. You can't just broadly get a warrant for Verizon no more than you can broadly get a warrant for the state of Ohio and start searching everybody in Ohio because you got a general warrant for the state of Ohio. It's not the way that our Constitution works. That's not the rule of law in this country. And this is a perversion of the law. Again, we're talking about using law in a way that it was never intended to do. The whole purpose of law is to defend individual rights. That's why law was created in the first place, to help organize groups together to protect those individual rights. So, again, there's no way that the security or safety of the collective could ever be put above the individual rights that our government was created with in the first place. That was the purpose that the government was created. So to use it in a manner that it wasn't created to do is to pervert the law. Now, let's also point out, all right, the NSA says, we need this. We need this data. You don't understand. We need it. You're going to make the country be at risk. National security. National security. Look, I'm tired of this excuse. I am so flippin' tired of this excuse. It is not acceptable. Those who would sacrifice liberty to gain a little security deserve neither and will lose both. That was Benjamin Franklin. Wiser words have never been said. Let me point out the fact, and this is just not my opinion, by the way. This is just a fact. The FBI cannot show one instance where metadata has made a difference in stopping a potential terrorist attack. They cannot show one instance. They say that the nature of intelligence is basically threads of information. So what this is doing is eliminating threads. If you basically get rid of some of the information that they could have out there, then it's going to prevent them from possibly putting some information together and connecting dots that could stop the next terror attack. However, the FBI can't show that it's ever helped anywhere, ever, or made a difference anywhere. And in addition to that, a Congressional Review Board, they can't show one instance where metadata has ever been used to prevent an attack. Yet the NSA wants the data just to have the data. Even though it's never provided anything of substance thus far, it's never helped any way to make us safer whatsoever. Let me ask you, what has it done? Well, it's violated every single American's Fourth Amendment right, and that's not a right given to you by the government. It's a right that you possess naturally. It's a right that you already have. And it's a right that was there before the government. It preceded the government. And the government itself was created to protect these rights. These rights. But they're perverting the law. They're changing what the law is for. Now the law is no longer about preventing injustice. It's about equal justice. It's about equal rights. And we're not talking about equal rights in particular. We're talking about equality and income inequality and philanthropy. That's another big thing. You know, these do-gooders out there that think that, you know, you can just use the law to provide everything for everyone. Well, I'm here to tell you that's not what the law was meant for. It's not meant to be philanthropist. It's not meant to be do-gooding. It's not meant for charity. It's not meant for these things. That's not what the law is for. The law is force. The entire purpose of the law is force. And it's to protect against injustice. That is it. That is it. It's not there to make sure that your neighbor doesn't do something that offends you. It's there to protect your person, your liberty, and your property. And they're using the law to negate that. They're literally coming after your liberty with the law. What is this country turning into? And I want to tell you how this started, because this metadata collection, it was ruled constitutional by the Supreme Court, and according to what I've been able to research about this, the way this was actually ruled constitutional was because records were taken out of some individual's trash can, phone records, you know, the bill, and it had like information about durations of calls and things along those lines. Records were taken from some dude's trash All right, and it went to court. They were trying to catch him on something, and they used this data from a phone bill. And this is where this became constitutional, is because they obtained it in the trash, and therefore they said, "Oh, metadata isn't constitutionally protected, so they can use your metadata." This is an entirely different circumstance than what it's being used for now. Let us just point out the fact that, I'm against this, for one. Them being able to use your trash against you. I believe that is part of your property. Even if you're throwing it away, I don't think it should be able to be used against you. That's my personal opinion. I don't like I really dislike the idea of police forensically going through your trash and starting to figure out what crime that you've committed. They never got a warrant, but now, because they don't have a warrant, they're just going to look through your trash because it's on the public street and you're putting it out to be taken away. I disagree with that practice. I think it perverts the entire intention of the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution. I absolutely disagree with it wholeheartedly, and I honestly, I understand the reasons behind it, but I don't think it is worth it. I don't think it is worth it. If you have real evidence, get a warrant. Get a warrant. Everything that's supposed to be search seized, it's supposed to be in a warrant, and it's supposed to be very specific. There's not supposed to be these gray areas of what they can search and what they can't. If you want to search, you need to get a warrant, and that means you need probable cause or reasonable suspicion, and you have to present it to a judge. That's what it means. But anyway, I wouldn't even be as upset if they were just using the stuff out of the trash, in your phone bill as metadata. But no, it's worse. Even if you shred everything and you try to protect your data and you try to protect your information, it doesn't matter. It's out there. All they have to do is use a coercive long arm of the government to squeeze it out of Verizon or whatever carrier you're using right now, and they've got it. And you don't even know this took place. You had no idea this even happened. There's nothing that you could have done to prevent it, save not even having a phone or making phone calls. There's nothing that you could have done to prevent this. Is this really the same as pulling a phone record out of the trash? Is this really the same? Because that's the precedent they're using here. And this is what I'm saying about court case precedents. I say this all the time. We have to be careful at what we allow our government to do. Yeah, that may seem entirely reasonable to one person. Oh, yeah, you can get stuff out of the trash, whatever. Where does it go from there? Where does it go from there? And then from that step, where will it go? It just continues to grow. The Leviathan gets bigger and bigger. Another head will sprout out. Another head will sprout out of the Leviathan. And you can't do anything about it. Before you know, it's too late. You've lost everything. You've lost your liberty. There is no more liberty. The government is socialist. The government is communist. No longer do you have the freedom to create your own destiny, the freedom to use your faculties to the best of your ability. Now you're dependent on the government. And in The Law by Frederick Bastiat, he says that liberty is the answer, and I absolutely agree. When you have a government that's responsible for every single aspect of society, when the government's in charge of industry, when the government's in charge of the economy, when the government's in charge of education, security, welfare, charity, all of these things, when the government is in charge of that, when we fail, when those sectors fail, it's the government's fault. But who would be to blame? Who could possibly logically ever blame the government that was only responsible for preventing injustice? Which, according to the definitions of Bastiat, would be to protect individuals' persons, their liberty, and their property. If that was the government's only job, who could ever complain that it was the government's fault? Anything was the government's fault. They wouldn't blame you anymore. The government any more than they would blame you specifically for what is going on. And I think that's the kind of government that we have to get back to. You are not contingent on your government. The government doesn't provide you some kind of mysterious energy to drive the economy. You are a free-thinking individual. You are what drives this country. Your effort, your sweat, your toil. You are what makes this country a great country. And you are what will continue to drive us forward, not the government. So it stands to reason that why doesn't the government just get the hell out of the way and let you do what you do best? Anyway, that's it for today's show. I really do appreciate everyone for tuning in. I just want to say a big shout out to the members of the Mac Pack. Thanks so much for tuning in week after week. You guys are the reason why we do this show. We appreciate your continued support. And don't forget to tune in next week at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Also, shout out to Haywire Gulch. We simulcast there as well, guys. Check them out, haywiregulch.com. Also, don't forget to check us out on our website, OnTheMoveShow.com. Don't forget to follow us on Spreaker.com/OnTheMoveShow. Like us on Facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow. Subscribe to us on YouTube.com/OnTheMoveShow. And follow us on Twitter.com/OnTheMoveShow. And as always, know your rights, assert your rights, and get on the move.